Hi, Karen and Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, well, thank you. We're so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. Being a women's health podcast and you being a mother and daughter duo, a power team, it's lovely to have those sort of two generations coming onto the podcast together.
Yeah, we've gotten to see a lot of aspects of women's health, both from having a household of 8 women growing up and then running 5 different centers across the country and dealing with women's health issues in more of a holistic healthcare clinic setting and educational setting. So we're very passionate about this topic.
You know, when I had my first
Amazing.
baby, I was like, I don't even want a girl. Please, God, don't give me a girl. I don't like bows. I don't braid hair. And I don't want to deal with girly crap, right? I was like, didn't want a girl. And then my first baby comes out and it's a girl. And I'm like, okay, I'll take one. And then the next one is a girl, and then they just kept coming. Well, luckily I got twins, so I got a son in there somewhere. But I was like, really? I had to learn how to braid and deal with women. And now that's all we do is help women. So it's definitely not what I expected. So I love it though.
Now, before we kind of dive in today's episode, could you both introduce yourselves a little bit more too?
Yeah. You want to start?
My name is Karen Arms. I go by Zuzu, and I got into natural health just organically as I wanted to reverse my epilepsy and get off of medications when I was younger before I had babies. And then I had my first daughter, and they wanted to put tubes in her ears because they said, well, she'll need them someday. And I was like, wait a minute here. And so just started baking my own bread and grinding my own wheat and then teaching health classes on how to make all this wonderful food. And then we just opened a store. Then we opened up a wellness center. Then we opened up an educational center. Then I opened another store, another wellness center. And it just kind of all just bloomed into something amazing. And now we have an online school of natural medicine, and we have graduates all over the world, 100 languages. We have a retreat center, and life is never, ever dull. So that's me. And I don't know if you'll ever meet someone who loves your guts more, because I do love your guts. So
That's awesome. So yeah, I'm kid number 7 in the whole lineup of our combined family. And out of that 7 out of 10 plus one we adopted after I was an adult. And I we grew up in rural Wisconsin, like way out in the country. There are more cows than people in the town I
This is
grew up
true.
in.
This is
That
true.
was still back in the day where your parents would be fine if you left the house during the daytime and as long as you were home, before dark. Or at least maybe by dinner. We had a dinner bell that could go pretty dang far.
you could hear most of the city.
But yeah, my friends, I would bike around and try to get lost. So it was beautiful countryside territory where we grew up. And we were very involved in holistic health, hosting classes and everything. And then I went off to college, studied epidemiology, wanted to study healthcare policy. Did that for 12 years and realized it was nothing I want to participate in yet. Granted, this was before RFK got into office in the States to work on. He has seriously made more progress in catching the Department of Health and Human Services up to speed than I would say the last 30 years plus.
Mhm.
So I'm a lot more hopeful now about the future of policy, but after 12 years of studying that and being in that world, I said, we're going to stick in the private sector. So joined forces with mom and I help her run her companies now.
Oh, she really
Oh, it's
runs it.
amazing.
She took over holistic health educators. I pop on just to spruce love everywhere, but she does amazing. So it's a lot of fun.
Mm. So let's dive into, you mentioned epilepsy at the start there, Karen, and trying to sort of dive into holistic health to help your own health. For people listening in that are like, "Oh, want to explore some more of that holistic health side to help myself, where should they start?"
Ah, I think that's a great question, by the way. I think understanding the body, once you understand it, it becomes very easy and it takes the fear out of dis-ease. And so the first place I started, and this is I'm old, right? Gray hair. And so before World Wide Web, we went to libraries, we bought books, and that's what I did. And I tried to understand more about the nervous system because epilepsy is a nervous system disorder. And when I studied, I learned that, hey, the nervous system needs really healthy fats, lots of B vitamins. And so rather than do anything supplement wise, I just started eating a lot of healthy fats and a lot more B vitamins. And I started eating enough of them that I was able to get off of one medication, then the second, then the third. So I was able to get off of 3 pharmaceuticals I titrated myself off. I didn't ask my doctor about that. It's just what I chose to do. And I haven't had a seizure and I haven't had an aura since. And so it was really powerful. And now that I've studied so much about the body, I realize it was a GABA deficiency, epilepsy, Tourette's, extra Y chromosomes. Those all can be very helped by getting more GABA in the body. And the foods I chose to eat were actually GABA rich foods. So it was a lot. It was before neurotransmitters were really studied a lot here in America and understood. And now I've helped thousands of people, with the education, just with gut health and yeah, and epilepsy and pretty much anything. But neurotransmitters really run the body, and so it was really fascinating. It was really very empowering.
Well, it's pretty amazing because most people, I think, even in today's society, if you have something wrong, you go to the doctor and they usually give you some medication to try to fix that problem or mask the issue essentially because they're not diving into that sort of root cause of the issue. So I think it's sometimes hard for people to work out like what they can do themselves to really try to help whatever condition they're suffering with.
hmm And I think that's why we're so passionate. That's why I started teaching classes like where is your pancreas and what does it do? And where is your stomach and what does it do? Why are there three parts of your stomach? And where is your esophagus? And how do you get rid of acid reflux? And how do you repair the esophagus? And just like really basic things. Because I would have people come in and they're like, oh man, I have this pain like right here. And they're like pointing at their gallbladder. And I'm like, oh, okay. And before I could say, hey, that's your gallbladder, the doctor had me work on the ovaries and they took tests of this. And like they're pointing at all these different parts of the body. And it wasn't until I said, hey, sweetheart, like you're pointing to your gallbladder. That's what the issue is. Like, and she would be like, that's what's there. And that's really when I just actually made up this really cute thing that I teach to people about the digestive system and how the body works. And I've done that in front of, I don't know, 10,000 people probably by now. And my students all learn it and they all out there teaching it because when you know that how the body works, it just, you don't get as nervous. So okay, you get some water. And you went to get some water. But that's what we focused on is education. And it still is what we focus on.
And if somebody is thinking that they need to do something about their gut health and, they've seen all the social media posts and the things in the media saying that that's the main thing to focus on now, where should somebody sort of start when it comes to their gut health?
Well, I'm really glad you brought that up because there are a lot of social influencers who do influence people to work on their gut, which is extremely important. But it's really important to understand the gut before you just jump into taking probiotics or eating more fiber. Fiber is, of course, very important, but there's actually a lot of people dealing with small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. They have bloating, they might have constipation or a lot of diarrhea. And so small intestinal bacteria overgrowth is never going to be helped by eating a bunch of probiotics and fiber. It's actually going to make it worse. And so, but when they don't understand SIBO or SIMO, small intestinal methane overgrowth, you have a methogen overgrowth because you have bacteria in the gut. And when they ferment an off gas, little archaea come out and then they eat the gases and then they ferment and create methane gas in your gut. So I just don't want people to think, oh, gut health, take probiotics and eat more fiber. That is the way to great gut health, but it might have to start upstream with like healing the small intestinal lining. So I guess just look at your symptoms and then maybe read a little bit about SIBO and SIMO before you jump into a fiber and a regimen with a bunch of probiotics, because that isn't always the number one thing, even though that's something that the influencers might be selling and promoting, and it can be a phenomenal product, is understanding the where and the when to approach the gut. So I think sometimes it's not as easy as just take a couple things that you see on the internet, because that actually, and maybe a good way to know is if you've taken more probiotics or fiber because you saw it on the internet and you're not getting better, then we know we're probably dealing with a bacteria overgrowth or a methane overgrowth in the body. So
In the small intestine.
yeah, in the small intestine. Yeah. That's probably
Yeah.
what I would recommend.
And when it comes to sort of, nutrition wise and the foods to sort of choose to help support the gut, what are some of your favorites?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. So, one thing that I'm going to say right off the bat when it comes to gut health, to back up what Karen said, is that sometimes the foods you will eat when you're healthy are not the same as the diet you need when you are healing. Those can be different foods. For instance, you might, if you're not, if you have a diversified gut microbiome, you can tolerate a significantly higher amount of plant protein and diverse proteins because the human body, sorry, not proteins, I mean fibers. The human body does not break down plant fiber. Bacteria breaks down plant fiber. So fiber is indigestible to human cells, but bacteria is like what eats it all up. And a big thing that causes carbohydrate intolerance we see a lot of carbohydrate intolerance in America because our gut microbiomes are so compromised. But if someone's lacking the microbiome diversity to tolerate a variety of carbohydrates, they might do a lower carbohydrate diet at first until uh until they've slowly built back up those populations. So to give you more concrete examples, we're big believers in whole food diets that include a wide variety of both root vegetables as well as above ground vegetables like leafy greens and everything in between. Just all sorts of vegetables. Ethically sourced animal products are phenomenal sources of proteins and collagens and several different vitamins or minerals primarily. And so, and your fat soluble vitamins. So ethically sourced animal products. Fruit in moderation is amazing. Definitely your nuts and seeds, man.
Absolutely.
If
I'm
you
waiting for my favorite category
yeah,
there.
if you can tolerate nuts and seeds, these things are powerhouses. They're like a complete food as far as carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and minerals, and vitamins. They're phenomenal. Sprouts
But
are
like
amazing.
not roasted nuts and seeds, guys. We want to get away from the roasted stuff. So you want to be careful when you're buying things
Yeah.
and see what oil they're putting on it. And if they're roasting it, then we don't want it. But a raw nut and seed or dehydrated nut and seeds, those are
Yeah.
phenomenal.
And we're still big believers in, beans and some
Yeah.
of your seed grains like amaranth or buckwheat or millet, you know? So that was a lot. But I mean, we do all sorts of like homemade tacos and just phenomenal stir fries and lots of steamed, various concoctions of things on the stovetop there with a bunch of fresh Mediterranean style salads. So like I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that you have to sacrifice something to eat well. And our food here, like, literally tastes so phenomenal. People pay money just to come here and eat with us.
They do.
Can we just like eat with you guys? It tastes so good.
Yeah.
It's a big misconception that eating healthy, you have to sacrifice flavor. I'm sure you being another person who loves food, you can relate, but it makes a huge difference
Yeah.
to be able to
Well,
taste good.
like you said, I think a lot of people think that healthy food is boring food, but there are so many amazing spices and, herbs and things that you can add for flavor. And I think sometimes it's just, going back to some of those basics and embracing, things like avocado and that are, they taste amazing. They're great, high in fat, really good for your body too. But stuff that I think a lot of people move away from in a convenience point of view. They tend to want to go for quick meals, easy, quick packaged. But as you said, a lot of them are cooked with oils that aren't great for you, or there's additives and preservatives and things that have added just to keep that sort of shelf life longer. So it's going back to some of those basics and carving out a bit of time as well just to prep food and enjoy it.
Yeah. That's, when you look at food, and this is what I've been teaching for decades now, everything you eat is going to give you energy or it's going to take you energy. Everything you eat is going to make you better or make you worse. Like, period. It's that simple. So if you pick up a Snickers bar, that's not real energy, and it's not going to be something you're going to process quickly. And so we have to look at food where an apple is going to give you energy, and it's going to be something that's donating, not just electrons, but vitamins and minerals, the cofactors and biophotons and, enzymes. But if you grab applesauce, that's nice, but there's no biophotons, and most of the minerals are, leached out into the water. You just get a different complex. So when you look at food, just trying to bring in some of the more living food, and I'm not saying applesauce is bad. I'm just saying it's a more of a cooked sugar where when you have something more alive, you actually are going to feel different. And you really, really do. I did a lot of study for several years on the frequency of food, and you can measure the angstroms from everything you ever eat. And there are certain foods that when you eat them, you are going to have more energy and you're going to feel elevated because there's so much light. These are a bunch of sprouts, right? And those sprouts are full of life. And when you're munching on a bunch of sprouts, you're getting more energy into the body than if you eat something that's not sprouting, something that's more dead food. There's living food and there's dead food, period. And so eating things that are alive can be very helpful. But I know you're focusing on the gut, and sometimes with the gut, we actually need to remove some of the fruits and some of those sugars out of the body so we can actually heal the gut lining and then resume, food activity after we go.
Mm. And I also want to touch on, in the early days when you were healing yourself holistically, I'm assuming you probably experienced pushback maybe from practitioners or other people sort of saying to you, this is not researched or, this is not this and that. How did you deal with that? And how has that affected you with, now that you've built up your, what wasn't a business, but into a business, into a worldwide business?
I think I just let it go off my shoulders. I was never one to absorb that. I just was like, oh, I'll prove you wrong, because like, isn't success the greatest revenge? And so, okay, all you naysayers who think I'm crazy for giving my kids green drinks, the whole time they were growing up. And like Amy went to school with cucumbers and red peppers and green drinks. And like, it was just part of our lifestyle, but our kids were healthy. And that was the thing that stood out. It might have seemed weird the first, 3 or 4 or 6 years I'm raising all these children, but then they go to school and they're healthy, they're vibrant, their grades are incredible. They're in all the plays. They're so active. They don't get sick. And so I'm taking the kids out of school for play days instead of sick days because they do so well. And I think that just spoke for itself. And people were like, wow. So as far as I didn't get a lot of pushback because I was already in my 20s. And so it wasn't like I was in school or I had a lot of outside influence. It was just me, and my husband, and I was making these changes. But I still see the pushback. Like literally we moved here and there was a local surgeon and he was like, you can't reverse Crohn's. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've helped so many people get rid of Crohn's. Of course you can. No, it's completely impossible. Blah, 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 and on and on and on. And I was like, oh my word. And I just let it go because I actually went over and wrote out a dinner invitation and invited him and his wife and his whole family for dinner so we could just like talk and become friends because I'm not the enemy. Just because I've helped people with Crohn's and maybe you haven't, that's okay. Like we're supposed to be merging our worlds, Eastern and Western medicine. He didn't come for dinner, by the way, but that's his issue. I at least extended it because I still have hope and I know it because my phone is full of doctors, medical doctors, that we can merge these worlds together so we can use some diagnostic and then we can use some plant medicine and herbs and foods to help heal the body. So I guess I just didn't let it get to me. I really didn't. I was stronger than that. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Mm. And Amy, did your sort of upbringing influence you and your want to go into the health field? And then how have you been able to meld that sort of Eastern and Western medicine together?
Yeah, so I was pretty outspoken about natural health growing up. We
That
we had a passionate household in terms of sharing, natural health with people in our community. We would host regular classes. We had a pretty busy wellness center where we lived, and so I grew up with a lot of passion for natural health. Uh, where I got my undergraduate degree was a lot more open to natural health and integrative medicine than where I got my master's degree. So I got my undergraduate degree in epidemiology, and it was still a very open minded public health program because the college I went to had really strong family values and believed a lot in people's personal agency, which unfortunately is not a big value system in our current public health regimes right now and our current medical regimes. And so you would call them an administration, but it's very like a regime right now. So I didn't, surprisingly, as vocal as I had been my whole life about holistic healthcare and natural health advocacy, I found myself really like fearful almost, biting my tongue a lot going to school at Johns Hopkins because the dogma there and the general attitude about literally anything outside of conventional medicine, it would not be correct to say it was hostile, but it was like super taboo. It was like super taboo. And I got there and I thought it was this like super forward thinking, innovative school because they publish so much research. Their professors publish so much cool research. They have some of the world's leading researchers on using psilocybin assisted EMDR as a replacement for depression. Like they're saying, hey, we can get rid of people's depression that they've been struggling with for 8 years or 10 years in 3 sessions of psilocybin-assisted EMDR or 8 session or whatever it is, they're publishing. So they're talking about that. They're talking about whole alternative cancer therapies. Like, they have professors who are publishing really cool content. And I assumed if the professors are publishing content about this, that must mean it's making its way into curriculum. And that was a false assumption. It was not making its way into curriculum. Holistic healthcare was nowhere to be found in the curriculum. Nowhere. I think I heard the word microbiome mentioned like 2 or 3 times, and not even from my professors. My professors of immunology had nothing to say about how to support your lymphatic system holistically, other than just like kill off whatever infection you have. Kill, 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 kill. They're so obsessed with killing. No one's talking about building. No one is talking about building. It's like, it's insanity to me. So I noticed I did not carry in that same level of advocacy, into that setting that you would have expected from some like fireball natural health advocate, the way I grew up my whole life. It took me I still spoke up in class, so the way I'm talking, you'd think I was quiet the whole time. I was quite vocal, but I was surprised at how kind of scary it is to feel like it's 1 versus 100. So I was the only one in these classes making the types of comments I was making, the only one, and no one was having my back until later. The first 2 years, I was like so low. And then by, the end of my program, more people, this is on the other side of COVID, more people were curious, like, where did you learn about natural health? Like, where can I learn the science behind natural healing? And I was like, well, I happen to have a school where we teach the science behind natural healing. Like, here's my card. Come study at our school because they're not teaching it here. And I offered to teach it at Hopkins.
You just wrote that letter, didn't you?
I rewrote the letter because the first time I offered it, my academic advisory team said I was like totally ineligible because of my vaccination status and that no one would take me seriously because of my vaccination status. Because I chose not to get the COVID vaccine because there was no research on fertility and I plan to have babies and I was not comfortable taking it. So that is how that went. Yeah. So now I live in a holistic healthcare bubble. Like, everyone I talk to lives in is either like so curious to try holistic healthcare or already lives and breathes this. So I'm like right back in my holistic healthcare bubble where like everyone knows that this is appropriate primary care. We understand evidence-based holistic healthcare, but yeah, it just depends where you are. We have a lot of nurses who are in medical settings where they're challenged on a regular basis by their colleagues with what they believe, and they've gone through all sorts of phases where everyone thought they were crazy to now everyone's asking them what to do for X, Y, and Z, in between patients. They're like, "Hey, my son has this going on, or my daughter can't get pregnant, or I was just diagnosed with fibromyalgia," or like, and they're asking them, for all these questions now. People are way more curious than they used to be, that's for sure.
Which is a great thing. I think if people
Yeah.
are more curious and wanting to take charge of their health, then hopefully it's more preventative care too, which takes pressure off the healthcare system as well,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
what we want to help alleviate the healthcare burden.
for
And it's
sure.
interesting because there's so many nurses and doctors that are like they want to get more into holistic health. There's a great awakening and a lot of them are looking for what can they do where they can take what they've been trained in and they know and bring it, more integrated with the eastern side of the world and the care that we offer in natural health. And so it's been neat. We actually hold these health fairs almost every month right now and they're literally aimed towards medical community because a third of our students worldwide are doctors and nurses because they're in the medical world because they want to learn this. And I think that's what gets me all excited is when we are working with the medical community and they're like, this is amazing. These are things that just all fit together. And oh my gosh, those are some of the best practitioners because they know a lot about the medical world. They know the side effects of medications, and then they know what they can do when it comes to natural health or herbs. It's really been neat. It's been an amazing few years.
Yeah, I would say they do great, but who else does great are the moms. Like, got into natural health because they needed to learn it for their kids. These people have such good intuition. We have this on Fridays. We host a holistic health practitioner roundtable where it's just an open call. All of our holistic health practitioners come on and share, client cases that they're dealing with right now to get other practitioners' input on it. And it's fun. It's fun getting to hear like the methodologies that people go through. But yeah, we have some of those like holistically trained moms, man. Their intuition's just so solid with like what direction to go with people. And I love getting to see that in action.
And I know you host retreats too, and you have people come and stay as part of the retreats.
We do. Those are so much fun. So yeah, we have retreats here and people come and they stay and they do a lot of detoxing and we have about 36 different modalities that we offer at our clinic from IV to lymphatic jumpsuits. So all sorts of crazy things and it works. People really do well. We're able to look at their blood before and after. We have our own lab, so we can run labs, urinalysis, all of it beforehand. We do ultrasounds, we do thermal imaging, and then afterwards, we can look at their blood under a microscope before and after, and they see the difference. And that's what's so rewarding is that people can feel it and they can see it.
Yeah, now that's more of like a clinical retreat. That's
Yeah.
where people are coming with like either a they really want to work on their health and like have metrics to track things and look at their blood under a microscope. The other types of retreats we host are like your normal, like super fun, good food, tons of live music, tons of
Mhm.
group sessions, women's circles, or we have both co-ed and women's retreats. So gift exchanges, like the feel good
Yeah.
personal development style, go to a nature oasis for a weekend and reset, your nervous system. We have both types of
Or
retreats.
a cooking retreat. Those are always fun.
And if someone's sort of listening in and they're like, oh, retreats sound fun, what do you think one of the main, sort of benefits of going on a retreat is?
I think the main benefit is tasting the food because a lot of people don't realize how phenomenal living food is and plant based food is. And when they come and they eat it, the first meal, they're like, oh, this tastes amazing. And then the second meal, then the third meal, then the fifth, the sixth, the 15th, the 20th. And they're like, they're having great bowel movements. They have more energy than they've ever had. They sleep better than they don't realize that your food can change your life in days,
Mm,
just in a few days. And I know that people are hesitant because like, oh my gosh, what would I eat if I didn't have meat and cheese and grain and, all that, whatever. And sugar. I'm like, there is so much to eat. You just don't know it yet. And then when they come, that is actually one of the favorite parts of anybody's retreat. They love their massage, they love their facials, they love all their detoxing, they love acupuncture. But oh my gosh, the takeaway is wow, that food was amazing. And they go home and they buy food and they start making it different for their families and they stick with it. It's really been cool. We have a lot of response now. So it's been really neat. I think that's the biggest
yeah.
takeaway. What do you think?
I think the biggest benefit of a retreat is educating your nervous system or educating your
Mm,
brain and your body in a new way of being. Humans are very monkey see, monkey do. And you can you can spend time with people, virtually by listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, being a part of online communities, and maybe doing occasional meetups. But humans just learn so fast when it's in person.
mm,
And you can borrow other people's, not just their energy, but like you can adopt mindsets and learn new ways of being and new levels of relaxation or new levels of energy, whatever it is, by being immersed in it very quickly.
mhm,
It's a phenomenal mechanism of the human experience. Our whole goal is for people to come here and then go home and come here and go home and keep doing
mhm,
that until you don't notice a difference when you're here and when you come home. You can carry that same level of inner peace and those same health habits with you as you go home so that it's not just like sometimes people first come here, they're like, wow, I feel like I just went to like some fairyland, fairy tale land, and now I have to like go back to my real life. And we're like, no, like you can make your own Lily Fields at home, like
mm.
get plants in your house and play music and diffuse essential oils and like enjoy your food or make healthy food, like whatever it is. But I think the biggest thing isn't even just the environment, it's just the people that you're around.
Well, I know my experience from retreats, it's that connection with other people and realizing
Yeah.
that they're going through similar journeys or, you hear their journey to get to that point and you just think, oh my goodness, adversity that some people have to overcome. It's
Yeah.
such a powerful connection with someone to learn about, their
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's a great example. Those women's circles are some of my favorite moments, probably of my life, is just hearing when it gets really raw and people are just opening up, man.
Mm.
That is some really phenomenal, feeling in the room.
And I want to just segue across. You were talking before about building up our health, and really trying to work on that sort of preventative health side. What are some sort of, basic habits or pillars that people should be trying to incorporate into their life that's really going to support their health?
Water. Drink more water, and not water with coffee in it, like water. So, like, just trying to get more actual water in the body, and you put a little salt in it, it's, like, amazing. So we love salt water, and, we really want to promote water. We want to promote nutrition, understanding healthy fats, because your whole body is made of healthy fats. Your whole nervous system is made that myelin sheath is fat, and whatever fats we're eating, that's what's making our myelin sheath. So kinda just understanding that we are what we digest, we are what we absorb, and looking at maybe what we're eating just a little bit more, objectively, so that we can be more aware, just being more aware of what we're actually eating and what it actually does at a cell level. And we just we haven't been taught that. We've been taught what to eat by industries. Here's your milk industry telling you to suck out of a cow. That's weird. There's your meat industry telling you only can eat dead animals like the rest of your life, and it doesn't matter where they come from. No, it does matter. It matters how the cow was treated before you eat it. Like, there's things that matter. Did it sweat? Did it have antibiotics? Like, what happened to the animal before you ate it? Like, all those things matter. And then to only give kids red delicious apples at school, that is a crime, because then kids don't like apples. Honeycrisp apples, we'd be selling a lot more Honeycrisp, if they had just some of the Gala apples and Fuji apples. And I think it's just exposure is the best thing. So if you weren't exposed to a lot of different foods, just like pick up a star fruit when you're in the produce section tomorrow, or pick up an avocado. And if it doesn't taste good the first time, maybe you got a bad one. So try another one. Like dragon fruit, they're crazy and they're weird, and kiwis are fun. Like, I think just exposing yourself instead of, like, kids are like, oh, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to try that. Tomatoes. But you've never had that little burst of an organic cherry tomato, because then you'd be sold. So I think just don't be afraid to try something new.
So yeah, diversity. She's the diversity queen as far as your diet goes. Trying new things all the time. Um, for me, the biggest thing I would say is people underestimate the role that movement plays in lowering inflammation. And it's a little bit connected to
Mm.
water, but one quick thing to understand about the human cell is that it is like a miniature version of you. It has a digestive and respiratory system. It has a skeletal system. It has its own lymphatic system. It has a little nervous system with a little brain. It has a little endocrine system. So your cells, it's not like, oh, that's a bone cell and that's a nervous system cell and that's a endocrine gland cell. It's like, no, every cell is like a little version of you. It has all these different systems, and they're called organelles. And these organelles, which stands for, that literally means miniature organ. If you break down the word organelle, they each have their own job. So your cells are consuming nutrients and they're pooping. So your cells eat and poop and eat and poop. So if you do not move your body, physically move your body, cell poop accumulates outside of your extracellular matrix, like in your extracellular matrix outside your cell walls. And you get this accumulation of metabolic waste product, is like what the biochemists would call it, metabolic waste products. I call it cell poop. And then you also have, your random bacterias and viral byproducts and all of that. This stuff accumulates and it causes inflammation. So how do you get that stuff out? You have to drink water and move your body. Like, it literally will not leave the extracellular matrix on its own. You do not have just like a constant,
Vacuum.
yeah, vacuum, like moving everything around. Like, your movement is what flushes things out of your body, and sweating. So I still think that movement is the most underemphasized thing in the holistic healthcare field. We love talking about nutrition and gut health and supplements and red light therapy and acupuncture and all this cool stuff.
Mm.
Totally love it. But guess what? There is no supplement on the market that will do what 5 minutes of physical activity will do for you, or else it would be the most expensive supplement on the market and everyone would be taking it. But nothing can replicate that for you. Nothing. So I'd just say physical activity. And it can be gentle. You just literally have to like move and get upside down and get in downward dog. And
You should do your whole thing, Amy, like getting out in the morning of your TP and stuff. Like, do that. It's so fun, because it's not just movement for moving the cellular waste. It's like triggering the neurons in the body and the nervous system. So please do that, because it's so much fun. Like, picture yourself coming out of the TP.
yeah, I
You bring all the senses together.
yeah, I sometimes walk people through like an experience where you just take yourself back to a day in the life before we domesticated our human bodies, like dogs in a cage. It's like what we've done to our human bodies. We're highly domesticated animals now when we really evolved in nature. And so just imagine like crawling out of a teepee in the morning and you hear the birds and it's coming in on the left brain and the right brain, like both ears, and that's stimulating different neurochemicals. Acetylcholine is a big one that you get from vagal nerve stimulation from left brain, right brain bird chirping actually. And then, like you wake up and you stretch and you're in the sun and then you decide to go move and now your body's releasing norepinephrine to get your body moving. And then you're anticipating what you're about to do that day, whether it's a hunt or building something. And so you have this dopamine coming up because of the anticipation of doing the activity. And, let's say you go through your day, you complete these things, you come back. If it's a tribal society, you might share meals together. You may do a drum circle. And that music is affecting your brainwave state mechanically. Any physical touch you're getting from other people is releasing oxytocin. The music and the connection is releasing serotonin. You're getting like all these neurochemicals being released in your body just by going through a day in the life between the sun exposure and the physical activity and running around out in nature and connecting with other people. So, one thing I want to point out is a lot of those neurochemicals are being stimulated because of peripheral nervous system stimulation, which is outside of your brain and spinal column. So your central nervous system is your brain and spinal column. Your peripheral nervous system is everything else. So all the nerves that come out to the tips of your fingers, that go down to the tips of your toes, your organs even, that's all your peripheral nervous system. So what I think is a huge phenomenon going on in society today is our central nervous systems are overstimulated and our peripheral nervous systems are severely understimulated. Sometimes I want to grab people and literally just throw them in a cold river or just like put them in the forest and like scrape their body against a bark. Like just like go get your body stimulated. Like touch this thing that you're living in. Like these nerves are so understimulated. 90% of your peripheral nervous system and the afferent nervous signaling that happens is below your neck. So we're treating mental health conditions, just focus on the brain, on the brain, on the brain, on the brain, on the brain. I'm like 90% of afferent nervous signaling is happening below your neck. And we're trying to treat mental health disorders like it's purely a mental thing. I'm like, if we're not moving this body, depression or anxiety or mood disorders, whatever, these things are a physiological consequence of having imbalances in the nervous system. Now, I'm not saying it just comes down to movement because I do believe in the power of thought and the power of our spirit is the most important thing. At the end of the day, I am still a believer that our spirits and our thoughts are at the very top of the pyramid of importance. So I'll still forever place the brain at the very top. The body just should be involved in this process, if that makes sense.
For sure. And I think, one of the recent studies said that over 90% of, someone's day is spent indoors. Like it was like 94%. And that was either in a car, or in a house, but it was just not getting outside. People just don't get outside as much anymore.
Well, we have to build some teepees and then have some teepee parties where we can all get up with Amy in the morning and touch the earth with our grounding. But it is so true, isn't it? Didn't we all feel great as kids? We ran outside and played outside and, touched the ground and ate things out of people's gardens. And it was just life. It was full of life all around us. And our kids are missing some of that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely with the introduction of technology and iPads and phones and all the rest of it, it definitely has changed.
Hmm.
Now, segueing before we were talking about food, one of the common questions that often comes through from listeners is whether or not they should be eating organic or if they can just go to the local market and, buy from the farmer that may not be organic.
Well, I like to think of it really simple. All of our great-great-grandparents, right, they all just ate organic. They just ate apples off the trees and they would go get grapes off the vine and they weren't spraying anything. They were getting rid of aphids pretty naturally. You can do that with copper. You can do that with vinegar. Like it just wasn't a big issue. And the more we started agricultural attempts, the worse our bugs got, the worse that our weeds got, and chemicals started getting used. But here's the simple thing. This is all you got to tell them. Okay, this pesticides are designed to kill the living nervous system of a pest. Insecticides are designed to do the same thing for insects. Herbicides are designed to kill a living nervous system of a plant, right? Plants just die. Larvicide is designed to kill the larvae in the meat. So when you go and you get your pork chops and you put them in a clear pan and you put Coca-Cola on them, you don't see the parasites coming out, which of course is what we did many years ago just to gross people out, because you cannot get a parasite out of a pig. You just eat them and then you're full of parasites. And trust me, it's real. You all have parasites. Just love them, but then get rid of them. But anyhow, and so like organic simply means, hey, we're going to avoid the side dishes that are going to kill the nervous system of anything that eats it. And I think it's like it's so easy to wrap your head when you hear it that way. It's like, do you want to give pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, and larvicides to your son and then expect him to sit quietly at school? No, you're killing his nervous system. He's going to have ADD, ADHD, and have also MS. I mean, you get into the nervous system disorders, and this is studied. Dr. Rubin did this really great study. He showed that up to 80% of adults and children on Ritalin could get off the Ritalin by making one change: going organic. That's it. Getting rid of those things that are designed to affect the nervous system of whoever eats it. So for me, actually, and I'm a mom, right? I raised these children. We had dinners together almost every single night. I packed their lunch. They made their breakfast. And I never put a budget on food. I would put a budget on clothing. We went shopping twice a year. They couldn't just have whatever they wanted. We got clothes donated and they went and shopped and they don't earn their own money. But darn it, as all I thought raising the children is my grandkids are in there. It's like my grandkids are in there. And I want to have sane, mentally normal children that have hormones that are functioning and neurotransmitters that are working and that feel emotions. So I don't want them on chemicals. I don't want them on pharmaceuticals. And so I did everything I could for my kids as a mom, because I knew if it wasn't in the house, they weren't going to eat it. Now, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't like uncomfortable. We had potato chip Wednesdays, right? They could all take a bag of potato chips to school with them, but it was organic potatoes in coconut oil and they were phenomenal. And then we had chocolate Fridays. They could have chocolate. And every last day of school, we had an ice cream bar, then all the friends could come over and we had ice cream for breakfast. But it was organic, of course, with great toppings, or we made it. But it was like, we didn't have soda pop just in 2 liters of trap. We just didn't do it because what mattered to me was my children's health. That was more important than having an extra, $2,000 at the end of the year. So, and it's really, I've done so much study on this. It's actually not more expensive to eat organic. You actually can save money. And I've had so many people send me receipts and pictures that they are now saving money when they went organic because they're also buying healthier food. And cool. You have a apostat at the base of the brain that controls your appetite by measuring the nutrients in your bloodstream. So, neep, neep, neep. Okay. Oh, there's lots of nutrients. You aren't hungry. Neep. Nope, nope. Oh, lots of nutrients. You're not hungry. Oh my, you're getting hungry. And then you eat something. Well, if you eat something with lots of nutrients in it, right? Then you're fine. Your apostat is checking and you are just feeling fantastic. You go to get a McDonald's hamburger and a French fry and a bit whatever and a ice cream thing and like, you might be good for like 15 minutes, but you're gonna be hungry right away. Everyone knows that. And so when you eat food that has more nutrients, it's called nutrient density. Joel Fuhrman wrote books on this decades ago. Then boom, you aren't gonna be hungry anymore, period. And so you can eat far less food and much better food for far less money. And because you're doing that, you're curbing your appetite naturally. And you don't want the chips and you don't want the soda and you don't want, to go out to eat this and that and the other thing because it's not good anymore. Your taste buds change and you feel better when you eat better food. So I think looking at the side dishes that are available when it comes to organic and then just and we could get into a lot of stuff because we own grocery stores. And so the brick weight of an organic apple is far higher than a non-organic apple. So you're actually going to have a lot more flavor. And a big Honeycrisp apple, forget it. Can't even eat the whole thing.
Yeah,
So,
and I would talk to the local farmers about,
yeah.
what they're spraying. There's certain farms, like a regenerative agriculture farm, the plants grown in regenerated soil can have up to 4 times as many nutrients as other plants, even organic plants, because sometimes they grow organic things in these cute protected greenhouses, but the soil itself isn't that nutrient dense. So you might be getting some of the vitamins and some of the minerals and definitely some of the fiber, but you won't be getting the nutrient density that you'd be getting with something that was grown in regenerated soil. So sometimes those farmers can't call their soil organic even though they're not spraying chemicals on it. So we're just big on having conversations with where you're sourcing your food from, because if it is a local person and they're not spraying but they can't call it organic, then we would say that's totally going to be the best case
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah. Always ask. They'll tell you, "Oh, I went to a farmer one time and his apples were just beautiful." I said, "Oh, so do you spray your apples?" "Oh, yes, I use this, 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 this." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." Because I don't know. They're going to tell you. So ask.
Yeah,
Find a
and I think that's
CSA. Those are great.
a good point because we have moved away from, shopping locally a lot of the time and shopping in supermarkets where you can't ask the farmer there, but if you are going to your local market, have those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, before we finish up, I always love to ask my guests that if there's one piece of health advice that you could give to our listeners now, that after listening to this episode, they could go off and instigate straight away, what would it be?
You go first.
Well, this hasn't really been talked about yet, and I'm sure you've had all sorts of speakers that have come on and spoken about this. We've talked about gut health, but one thing we haven't mentioned here is, depending on the state of your nervous system, that is what's determining how much blood flow you're getting to your digestive organs, how much muscle contraction is happening in your digestive tract, how much immune system activity is happening there. If you're in fight or flight, your digestion could be working at anywhere from 80% capacity all the way down to 20, even 10% capacity if it's like a really traumatic experience. So if you have someone who's in a pretty regular state of fight or flight, they're only working with 60% of their digestion because 40% of it's shut off because they're on fight or flight and the capillary sphincters leading to your digestive
Mhm.
tract are closed. You have 40% less blood flow to the liver, 40% less blood flow to your organs, your villi, all of it. So my biggest thing is probably just going to be the mind and nervous system. There are people I have met people who met with holistic health practitioners and tried all these supplement regimens and this test and that test and more supplements. And it wasn't until they went through programs that taught them how to reprogram the mind. It's called neuropsychology. And there's specifically one model that we teach at our school called neuro auto associative programming. And it teaches people about how their brain is working and how their brain's working to meet their chemical needs, and specifically how the associations you have with everything in your life is creating this chemical experience that we call, the human experience and emotions and reactions and joy and pressure and pain and suffering and anxiety and all of these things. It's because of the patterns our brain has come up with, most of the time just trying to keep us alive and well. But sometimes those patterns are they're keeping you alive, but they're also keeping you sick. And I'm telling you, I have heard so many people's stories who tried so many things, and it was not until they got their mind in a place where it could be peaceful and they could work through some of those patterns and reprogram their brain that they were actually able to have good digestive health or uh, get over
Sleep
Lyme
better.
disease or sleep better or whatever
Mhm.
their situation was. It really was their brain. So as much as I love talking about the gut microbiome and women's hormones and sun exposure and all of those things, emotional health is probably still the top of the totem pole for me.
And that's funny you said that because the first thing that came to my mind, besides sleep naked, I'm really big into sleeping naked because there's a lot that happens chemically when you're with a spouse or even by yourself that your body is just such a great time to breathe and to relax and to no polyester at night, no polyester on the blankets, no polyester anywhere, just you and that cotton or that linen. It can just that alone can transform quite a bit. But mine is there's a saying, and I have it above our door when you leave, and it says, "A healthy man has many wishes, and a sick man has one." I once got onto an airplane and I could smell like this rotting, fermenting person. And it ended up on this monster plane that I was sitting next to that person. And he was by far 200, 300 pounds overweight, multiple extensions to go over his belly. And I like start a lot of conversations with people on planes because I'm kind of one of those, hey, I'm supposed to be here. This time it wasn't though. It never started. I never had a conversation with him. But what happened to me in my mind really helped me have an even greater desire to help others because I kept thinking no one ever cared enough to tell him he was worth it. Like no one ever got tough with him and said, hey, you can live a better life and you can have more energy. And and influenced him enough that he actually desired it. He just never had the desire or the strength to make those changes. And so that healthy man has many wishes, a sick man has one. My desire would be that anybody who, like I had medications. I didn't want that anymore. I wanted the freedom to not be taking medications anymore. I wanted the freedom to know that my offspring wouldn't have this addiction or wouldn't have this chemical in their makeup and their DNA influencing their body. Like, my desire would be for everybody to just reach down and dig deep and find the desire to go play soccer with their grandkids or to play an instrument or to start learning something. One of my best friends just got her real estate license and she's my age, 58 years old. Like, find something that makes you want to live longer and have value. Then you will have the drive to make changes in your life. And so I think for me, when I meet with my clients, it's every day, I'm like, what is it you want to live for? Like, what can we do to bring this out again? What is it that will drive you to become a better human? Is it work? Is it money? You will have more money. You will have more friends, and you will love yourself more when you actually put yourself as a priority. Right now, we put so much else as a priority. We get on our phones, and that's our priority when we wake up. And I guess I would just love for people to put themselves in front of everything else and find inside of them the reason to make the changes.
I love that.
Mm,
Oh, I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm.
Well, before we wrap up, where can our listeners reach out, connect with you guys, find out more about your programs as well?
Well, if the easiest thing is just go to one website, zuzuunleashed.com, because then it's everything I'm doing or doing, anything we're doing is on one site. Holistic Health Educators is where we have personal certifications and we have certification programs to become holistic health coaches and TNCs and HHPs. Like, that's our educational site. And the blog there is great. We are always up to something. But Lilly Fields, the links to Lilly Fields are there. The links to our next upcoming webinars are going to be there. So it's kind of a one-stop place instead of going to multiple different websites. We have an incredibly high graduation rate because we just hold your hands. We just become your besties, and you will never find it. I really don't believe you could ever find a greater group of people than on Tuesday night with our students. It's just like coming home and you just can't wait for Tuesday nights. It really is.
Yeah.
It's neat.
Well, I'll link that all up in the show notes so listeners can head
Thank
across
you.
there and click there. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both.
Yeah,
Same
thank you.
here.
Thank you, Kate. And
Yep.
I would love to hear, if you have one more minute, what's one of your personal reflections from our conversation today? Or
Well, I
what's
love
running
that.
through your mind?
I was going to say, I love that it's the two of you working together. Like, it's not often that you see like that mother and daughter connection. And as I was sort of saying before with retreats and finding that connection, you guys are so passionate about, what you work with, and it just comes through when you're talking about it. And that's one of the biggest things, that if you are passionate about what you're sharing, then you're going to be great at it because you're, enthusiastic about learning more all the time. So I think it's just been your general nature and warmth coming through and passion. So thanks for sharing it with the world and building what you have, because I think more of it needs to be out there, and you've created such a successful enterprise that's accessible to people too.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you, Kate.
Well, you have our email, so if you need us, just reach out.
Yeah.